Alien girl thought she didn't feel pain until she shared a bed with a human. Zyra had always believed she was different. Unlike the humans she had read about in old research reports, she could not feel pain, or at least, that's what every scientist on Lumeria had told her. From the day she had hatched in the crystalline city of Lithra, she had been stronger, faster, and more resilient than anyone else in her colony. Small accidents that would have left a human wincing or crying barely registered on her alien senses. Scratches, bumps, even falls from great heights, they were just data points, nothing more. Yet today felt different. The day began like any other in Lithra. The soft hum of the city's energy fields filled the air, and crystalline spires shimmered with a soft, pearlescent light. Zyra walked along the elevated streets, her long limbs moving with smooth precision. She was on her way to meet someone from a species she had only ever studied from afar, a human. Humans were fragile creatures, and their biology fascinated the Lumerians. Scientists had long debated why these small, soft beings survived in hostile environments when they seemed so vulnerable. Zyra had read every report, analyzed every sample, and observed every simulation. Yet she had never actually met a human in person, until today. The human's name was Eli. He had arrived on Lumeria aboard a sleek, silver shuttle that looked fragile compared to the crystal towers of Lithra. When Zyra first saw him, he seemed almost overwhelmed by the city's glow, his eyes wide as he took in every shimmering structure. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his movements were cautious, as if every step could be dangerous. "Welcome to Lumeria," Zyra said, her voice smooth and musical, carrying a hint of curiosity. Eli turned, startled by the sound, and then smiled nervously. "Thank you. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like this before." Zyra studied him silently for a moment. He looked fragile, yes, but there was something about him, something beyond physical weakness. Humans had a resilience that no alien could measure, a strength that came not from muscle or reflex but from something deeper. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a strange tug of curiosity. "You will be my guide," Zyra continued. "I will show you the city and help you understand our ways. You must follow carefully. Some areas are dangerous for untrained species." Eli nodded eagerly. "I understand. I'll do my best." As they walked through the crystalline streets, Zyra noticed how different he was from everything she had known. Humans were clumsy but quick learners. They observed, asked questions, and adapted in ways her species did not. Zyra found herself enjoying his company more than she expected. They reached the central plaza, where the city's energy core pulsed with light. It was a place of study and observation, where Lumerian scholars gathered to test new technologies. Zyra led Eli to a viewing platform that overlooked the plaza. "This is the core," she explained. "It powers the entire city and regulates environmental conditions. It is delicate. Any disruption could be catastrophic." Eli leaned over the railing, his eyes scanning the pulsing light. "It's beautiful, but it looks dangerous. How do you control it?" Zyra tilted her head. "Through precise calculations, focus, and constant monitoring. It is not like your human machines, which rely on trial and error. Here, even small mistakes have consequences." Eli nodded, clearly impressed. "I see. I suppose your species doesn't make many mistakes." Zyra's lips curved into a small smile. "We are taught to minimize them. But even we are not perfect." For the first time, Zyra felt a flicker of something unfamiliar, a strange mix of anticipation and unease. She couldn't place it, but it seemed tied to the human at her side. He moved differently, spoke differently, and even smelled differently, though she couldn't name the scent. Her heightened senses detected subtle shifts in his pulse, temperature, and rhythm. She had never noticed anything like this before in another being. The day continued with tour and explanations. Zyra showed Eli the residential areas, the laboratories, and the training grounds. She demonstrated how her species moved, how they lifted massive weights, and how they resisted environmental hazards. Eli listened intently, asking questions, taking notes, and occasionally trying things himself. Zyra was impressed by his determination. He struggled with the simplest tasks at first, lifting a weighted object, navigating a low-gravity chamber, but he refused to give up. There was a stubbornness in him, a refusal to admit defeat, that fascinated her. By evening, Zyra was assigned to escort Eli to his quarters. The city had been built with humans in mind. They could not survive long in alien gravity or atmospheric conditions without assistance. Zyra led him to a small, softly glowing chamber designed for temporary habitation. "You will sleep here," Zyra said. "It is adapted for your species. Your bed is safe and the environment is controlled." Eli glanced around, eyes wide. "It's comfortable, thank you." Zyra nodded, then hesitated. "If you require assistance, I am nearby. Do not leave the chamber alone tonight. The city can be unpredictable for untrained species." Eli smiled politely. "I understand. Thank you, Zyra." She left the room, her mind unexpectedly preoccupied. As she walked back toward her own quarters, she tried to shake the strange feeling that had settled in her chest. She had never felt nervous, unsettled, or aware of another being in this way. Humans were supposed to be delicate, weak, and easily overwhelmed, yet Eli had stirred something in her that was new. Night fell over Lithra, and the city's crystalline towers glowed softly in the darkness. Zyra returned to her quarters, yet her thoughts remained with the human. She replayed the day in her mind, the way his hands fumbled, the way his voice trembled with curiosity, the way his presence seemed to resonate in ways her alien senses could not categorize. She shook her head. "I am not affected," she told herself firmly. "It is merely observation, data collection, nothing more." And yet, even as she repeated the phrase, she felt a subtle shift in her body, a slight, almost imperceptible thrum of sensation that she had never experienced before. It was not pain, at least not as she understood it. It was something new, a signal that perhaps her understanding of herself was incomplete. The city slept, quiet and still, while Zyra's thoughts raced. For the first time, she wondered if humans were not just fragile but different in ways that might be valuable. Not because they were weak, but because they could feel and perhaps feel deeply. Tomorrow, she knew, would bring more interaction, more observation, and perhaps, if she allowed herself to admit it, more questions about what it truly meant to feel. Zyra lay down in her own bed, eyes open, staring at the softly glowing ceiling. She had never questioned her strength, her resilience, or her abilities before. But now, with the human in the city, something inside her stirred. For the first time, Zyra thought, maybe not all strength comes from being impervious. Perhaps some comes from allowing oneself to sense, to react, and dare she think it, to connect. And though she did not yet understand it, a small part of her wondered what it might mean to share more than space with a human. The storm hit Lithra without warning. The usually calm skies above the city of crystalline towers darkened in moments, and flashes of violet lightning cracked across the horizon. The hum of energy fields that usually filled the city with a soft, reassuring resonance turned into a low, vibrating rumble. Zyra had been monitoring the energy core when the first tremors shook the ground. She knew the storm would interfere with the city's delicate systems. Alerts flashed along her wristband as she ran toward the observation towers, coordinating with other Lumerian scientists to stabilize power fluctuations. But amid the urgency, one thought kept repeating in her mind: Eli. The humans' quarters were small but functional, designed to maintain Earth-like gravity and atmosphere. Zyra arrived just as a sudden gust of wind rattled the building's outer panels. She opened the door and found Eli already there, pacing nervously. "Zyra," he called. "The storm, it's stronger than I expected. What should I do?" "Stay calm," Zyra instructed, her voice steady. "The chamber is reinforced and the environment is controlled. You are safe here." Eli nodded, though his human features betrayed worry. He had no experience with alien storms or the subtle dangers of a high-tech city built on energy fields. I should probably leave, Zyra considered aloud. But the paths outside are dangerous. You must stay inside. Eli glanced at her, then at the chamber. Then will you stay too? He asked quietly. There was no challenge in his voice, no demand, just a simple human request. Zyra hesitated. She had never shared a space with another being in such proximity. Her species valued distance and personal energy space, rarely needing others so close for comfort. But the thought of leaving him alone, it stirred something unfamiliar in her. Very well, she said finally. I will stay until the storm passes. They arranged themselves in the room. Eli's quarters had 2 beds, one for him and one for Zyra, but the storm's tremors made the space feel smaller, closer. Zyra chose her bed but remained alert, sensing every vibration in the floor and air. Her body picked up the subtle rise and fall of Eli's chest as he sat on the edge of his own bed. At first, the night was quiet. Lightning flared outside, casting jagged shadows across the walls. The storm's energy hummed through the city, but the chamber remained stable. Zyra expected to feel nothing as usual. Pain, fear, even surprise, these were irrelevant to her alien physiology. But then it happened. A particularly strong tremor shook the chamber. Eli grabbed the edge of his bed to steady himself, and in doing so accidentally brushed against Zyra's arm. She felt it immediately, a small, sharp spike of sensation that traveled from her shoulder to her chest. She froze. What? She whispered to herself. It wasn't pain in the way humans experienced it. There was no burning, no ache, no warning signal from her nervous system. Yet it was undeniable. Her body had reacted to his touch in a way she could not explain. Her senses, so precise and accurate in every other context, seemed confused. Eli, oblivious to the effect he had caused, smiled sheepishly. Sorry, I didn't mean to bump into you. Zyra simply nodded, trying to analyze the sensation. She ran simulations in her mind, comparing her body's response to every data point she had ever recorded. Nothing matched. She had never felt this kind of reaction before. The storm raged outside, and soon the tremors forced them to move closer together for safety. At one point, Zyra had to stabilize a shaking console, and Eli instinctively reached out to help. Their hands brushed again. This time the sensation was stronger, a strange mixture of alertness and discomfort. Zyra pulled back, startled. Her chest felt tighter than usual, and a flicker of something unfamiliar ran through her thoughts. She had no name for it. It was not pain exactly, nor fear. Yet it affected her focus, her attention, her awareness of the human beside her. Eli noticed her reaction this time. Are you okay? He asked, his voice quiet and concerned. Zyra looked at him. She wanted to dismiss it as nothing, as she always did with strange occurrences. But the truth was undeniable. Her alien body, the one that had never known vulnerability, had reacted to the presence of another being in a very unusual way. I am functioning, she replied carefully, though she could not entirely mask the tension in her tone. But your touch produces unusual sensations. Eli frowned slightly. Unusual. I didn't touch you hard, just accidentally. Accidental or not, Zyra admitted, the sensation is real. It is unlike anything my species has experienced. For the first time in her life, Zyra questioned her understanding of herself. Perhaps her species was not truly immune to what humans called pain. They just did not experience it in the same way. Perhaps there were thresholds, triggers, or contexts that had never been tested until now. The storm continued to batter Lithera, lightning streaking across the crystalline towers in dazzling arcs. Zyra and Eli settled into their respective beds, but neither could ignore the undercurrent of awareness between them. Zyra's heightened senses picked up every subtle movement, every tiny shift in his breathing, every soft whisper of air as he turned in bed. She focused on data, trying to rationalize it scientifically. Perhaps it was a new form of sensory input, a combination of tactile, thermal, and emotional signals unique to humans. She noted every detail, the warmth radiating from his skin, the rhythm of his heartbeat, the slight trembling in his hands. It was all measurable, and yet it had an effect that defied her understanding. Eli, meanwhile, lay awake as well. He could sense her presence, even without seeing her. Humans had an intuition about other beings, especially those who were watching or aware of them. He felt strangely comforted by it, though he didn't fully understand why. The alien girl who seemed so strong and unyielding was lying in the same room, sharing space and vigilance. Hours passed, and Zyra's mind raced. She tested herself, deliberately moving her limbs closer to him, observing the responses in her body. Each minor contact produced a ripple of sensation. Her analytical mind cataloged everything, but her thoughts could not dismiss the emotional undertone, the sense of connection, of being aware of another in a deeply personal way. Finally, the storm began to subside. The tremors lessened, and the hum of the city returned to its normal, calming pitch. Zyra and Eli exhaled, though neither spoke immediately. The night had been long, and the storm had left both of them restless. Zyra closed her eyes and reflected on what had happened. She realized something extraordinary. She had experienced a new form of sensation, one triggered not by injury, but by proximity, touch, and presence. Her species had always prized detachment and self-sufficiency, but she now understood that being near another being, especially a human, could awaken responses she had never imagined. Eli stirred slightly, still asleep, and Zyra observed him quietly. She felt a mixture of curiosity and something else, something she could not name. It was not weakness, not fear, not pain. It was awareness, a subtle connection to another life form that made her question everything she thought she knew about herself. For the first time, Zyra admitted a small truth. She might not be immune to all sensations after all, and perhaps the human beside her, fragile, persistent, and remarkably resilient, was the catalyst. As the first light of Lumeria's twin moons filtered through the crystalline windows, Zyra lay awake, contemplating the strange, unfamiliar sensations that had stirred within her. She had always believed strength came from being impervious. Now she wondered if true strength might also come from sensing, from feeling, and from understanding another being. And in the quiet aftermath of the storm, Zyra realized she was not just observing a human. She was learning something profoundly human herself, something she would never forget. The storm had passed, leaving the city of Lithera sparkling under the twin moons. Crystalline towers glimmered in soft violet and blue light, casting intricate reflections across the streets below. Zyra moved through the quiet city, her thoughts still preoccupied with the sensations she had felt during the storm. Each movement, each shift in air or vibration, reminded her of the human beside her and the subtle, confusing reactions her body had experienced. Eli was waiting in the central laboratory, eager to begin the day's work. The humans and Lumerians had agreed to conduct joint research on planetary environmental effects, but for Zyra, the real experiment had already begun, exploring the strange new responses she felt in the presence of a human. "Good morning, Zyra," Eli said, his voice cheerful. "I hope the storm didn't bother you too much." Zyra tilted her head. "It was informative," she replied carefully. "It allowed for observation of unusual sensations." Eli raised an eyebrow. "Unusual sensations?" She hesitated for a moment, unsure how much to reveal. Her species valued control, logic, and restraint. Admitting that she had experienced something beyond her understanding could be seen as weakness. Yet she also knew that humans thrived on transparency, on sharing experience as a form of learning. Human proximity during environmental stress triggers responses in my system, she explained. Responses I cannot classify fully. Eli blinked, considering her words. So, being near me affects you, Zyra nodded slowly. Yes, it is not like your pain or your fear. It is different yet undeniable. My body reacts. Eli smiled softly. Well, that's fascinating. Maybe it's a good thing. Humans have a way of teaching even the strongest beings something new. Zyra studied him. You speak as though your species holds strength I cannot comprehend. He shrugged. Maybe not strength in the way you think, but endurance, connection, adaptability. Humans have ways of feeling that create their own kind of resilience. The laboratory was vast, filled with glowing panels and levitating equipment. Zyra guided Eli to a set of simulation chambers, designed to test the effects of planetary storms and gravitational shifts on various species. Today, however, Zyra had a personal mission: to observe her own reactions more closely in the presence of Eli. She instructed him on the experiments, explaining how to monitor environmental changes and record data. Eli listened carefully, nodding and taking notes. His fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted the controls, but there was determination in his movements that Zyra found compelling. The first test was simple, adjusting gravity levels to simulate Lithera's natural variations. Zyra moved easily through the chamber, unaffected by the shifts. Eli struggled at first, stumbling slightly, but he adapted quickly, recalibrating his movements with remarkable speed. Zyra's sensors noted each micro-adjustment he made, his heartbeat rising slightly as he corrected himself. As they worked side by side, Zyra noticed something curious. Whenever Eli came too close, even briefly, she felt a subtle tension in her chest and a light, unfamiliar ache along her limbs. It was not discomfort in the traditional sense, but a sensation that made her acutely aware of his presence. "Are you feeling all right?" Eli asked, noticing her slight pause. "I am functioning," Zyra replied, though she could not hide the slight tightness in her voice. "But proximity induces reactions in my system." He tilted his head, thoughtful. "Interesting. Maybe your species has thresholds that humans can trigger without meaning to. It's like your body notices me more than you realize." Zyra considered this. Perhaps humans were not only adaptable, but also capable of eliciting responses in other beings simply by being near them. She had never imagined such an effect could exist. Her scientific curiosity surged. They continued with the experiments. Zyra allowed Eli to demonstrate his own problem-solving skills, noting how his mind compensated for physical limitations. He improvised, adapted, and learned from mistakes in ways her species rarely needed to. Every time he stumbled but kept moving forward, Zyra's sensors recorded a subtle spike in her awareness, an echo of his determination, resilience, and presence. By midday, they were taking a break. Zyra found herself observing him quietly as he worked on data analysis. Humans had an unusual habit of expressing concentration through small gestures: a tilt of the head, a furrow of the brow, a soft exhale of frustration or triumph. Each gesture triggered small, almost imperceptible responses in Zyra. Her body's usual calm and efficiency felt slightly off balance. "Zyra," Eli asked, noticing her gaze, "are you okay?" "I am," she began, then paused. How could she explain that her body reacted not to danger but to human gestures, to mere presence? She decided to be honest, at least partially. "Your actions produce responses. I do not understand them fully. They are physical, yet different from standard biological reactions." Eli smiled again. "Then maybe it's just a human thing. We tend to make other beings notice us without even trying." Zyra considered his words carefully. Perhaps this was the essence of human strength, their ability to influence others not through force, but through existence itself. The realization was unsettling yet fascinating. Later, they moved to the simulation chamber designed for sensory analysis. Soft lights and sounds were projected to mimic natural environments, rain, wind, and shifting temperatures. Zyra observed her own responses carefully as Eli interacted with the controls. Each time he made adjustments, Zyra felt a shift in her perception. It was as if her body was learning from his presence, absorbing subtle cues she had never encountered. "Your species adapts in ways I do not anticipate," Zyra said finally. Eli chuckled softly. "We have to. The universe isn't forgiving. Maybe that's why we can influence each other, even in ways we don't fully understand." Zyra's chest tightened slightly at his words, a new kind of awareness stirring inside her. She realized that what she felt was not weakness. It was connection. A recognition that even the strongest beings could be affected by those around them. Humans, she concluded, had a unique ability to create these bonds simply by existing and interacting. As the day wore on, Zyra allowed herself to experiment deliberately. She moved closer to Eli during exercises, monitored her own reactions, and cataloged the new sensations. Each brush of his hand, each shared task, each soft word of instruction sent subtle ripples through her system. She noticed warmth spreading through her chest, a heightened alertness and an unfamiliar tension in her muscles, not pain but unmistakably present. Eli noticed her observations. "You're paying attention to yourself," he said. "It's good. Learning about your own reactions can be as important as learning about the experiment." Zyra nodded. "Indeed, this is enlightening. I may have underestimated the complexity of human interaction." By evening, the laboratory's work concluded, and they returned to the residential area. Zyra's quarters were quiet and dimly lit, providing a peaceful contrast to the storm earlier. She reflected on the day's discoveries. Her body had responded repeatedly to Eli's presence in ways that could not be explained purely by physiology. There was something more, something she had never experienced in her species. That night she prepared for rest, her thoughts still tangled with the day's events. She could no longer deny the strange, unfamiliar sensations that had arisen whenever Eli was near. They were subtle, unpredictable, and entirely new. And yet they had taught her something invaluable. That strength was not only about resistance, speed, or immunity. It could also come from awareness, sensitivity, and connection. Eli entered briefly to check on her. "Good night, Zyra," he said softly. "I hope tomorrow is easier." Zyra nodded, meeting his gaze. "Good night, human. I appreciate your presence." It was a simple statement, yet loaded with meaning. Zyra had never acknowledged dependence, attention, or awareness of another being in this way. The admission was not weakness. It was recognition of something fundamentally human, a new layer of understanding she could not ignore. As Zyra lay in her bed, she realized the storm had changed more than the city's weather. It had shifted her perception, opening her mind and body to experiences she had never known. She had felt subtle sensations, learned to notice them, and recognize the value in human presence. And deep within, she understood something profound. Perhaps the greatest discoveries were not about what one could withstand, but about what one could feel, learn from, and share with another being. Zyra closed her eyes, anticipation and curiosity swirling within her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new experiments, and perhaps new discoveries, not just about the world around her, but about herself, and the human who had unknowingly awakened her to sensations she had never imagined. The following morning, Lithera glimmered under the soft light of Lumeria's twin moons. The crystalline towers sparkled like diamonds, casting intricate reflections across the streets. The storm from the previous night had left the city shimmering and vibrant, a reminder that even in calm, nature held power. Zyra awoke earlier than usual. She felt a subtle warmth in her chest, a lingering awareness of the human presence beside her. The night had been quiet, yet she had sensed every movement, every breath of Eli, and every shift in his energy. Her body still reacted, sometimes with a subtle ache or a spark of tension. Sensation, she realized, was not weakness. She dressed quickly and made her way to the central laboratory. Eli was already there, working on recalibrating equipment affected by the storm. He looked up and smiled, his human eyes full of curiosity and encouragement. "Good morning, Zyra," he said. "I hope you slept well." "I did," she replied, though her voice carried an unspoken complexity. "And you?" "Sleep was fine," Eli said. "Though I kept thinking about yesterday, about how different your responses were compared to what I expected." Zyra hesitated. For the first time, she considered sharing more than just factual observations. Her body had reacted in ways that were new, strange, and profoundly informative. Yet telling a human about alien sensations could be tricky. Still, she decided honesty was necessary for science and understanding. "Your presence affects my system in ways I had never predicted," she admitted. "The reactions are subtle but undeniable. They are neither weakness nor malfunction. They are connection." Eli tilted his head, thoughtful. "Connection?" "Yes," Zyra continued. "Being near you, observing you, interacting with you, my body and mind respond. I feel aware, heightened, attentive. It is a form of sensation I have never experienced before." Eli nodded slowly. "That's amazing. Maybe humans have that effect naturally. We sense, react, and sometimes teach each other without realizing it." Zyra considered his words. Perhaps humans possess strength that transcended physical limits, the strength to affect, inspire, and awaken senses in others simply by being present. The day's research continued with experiments in the environmental simulation chambers. Zyra and Eli worked side by side, adjusting variables, recording data, and analyzing results. The exercises required close cooperation, and Zyra noticed her reactions more keenly than ever. Each time Eli brushed against a control panel, leaned near her to check readings, or offered a hand to steady her, her body responded. Tingling along her arms, a light pressure in her chest, subtle shifts in muscle tension. These were not pain nor fear but awareness. They were signals that her body and mind were processing something entirely new. During a break, Zyra observed Eli carefully. He moved with determination, improvising when systems faltered. She noticed small gestures he made unconsciously, adjusting his hair, rubbing his eyes, pausing to think, which created responses in her she could not explain. It was as if she were learning from him, not through instruction, but through presence. "You've changed since yesterday," Eli remarked casually, noticing her focused gaze. "You seem more alert, more responsive." Zyra nodded. "Indeed, my system adapts to your proximity. It is a form of learning, perhaps even a form of strength I had not considered." Eli smiled. "That's humans for you. We adapt, endure, and influence others in ways we don't even realize. Maybe your species could learn from that too." Zyra considered his suggestion. Adaptability, emotional awareness, connection. These were qualities her species often overlooked in pursuit of efficiency and control. Perhaps strength was not only measured in resilience or resistance, but in understanding, sensing, and responding to others. As the day progressed, the experiments became more complex. Simulations of gravitational anomalies and environmental disturbances tested both species' reactions. Zyra felt her responses intensify. The subtle awareness she experienced before now included faint rhythms of emotional resonance. She could sense Eli's concentration, his determination, even his moments of uncertainty. It was not intrusive, nor uncomfortable. Rather, it was enlightening. Zyra realized that her alien physiology, combined with human presence, created a kind of synergy. She was experiencing a broader spectrum of sensation than ever before, and with it came insight into the human capacity for endurance, empathy, and adaptability. By evening, their work concluded. They walked together to an observation platform overlooking Lithera. The city shimmered beneath them, peaceful after the storm. Zyra stood silently, watching the play of light across the crystalline towers, her thoughts occupied with more than the city's beauty. "You've been quiet," Eli remarked. "Are you thinking about the experiments?" Zyra turned to him. "I am thinking about what I have learned. Not only about the city, not only about the experiments, but about myself, and about your species." Eli raised an eyebrow. "And what have you discovered?" "That strength," Zyra began slowly, "is not only about immunity, speed, or resilience. It can also come from awareness, from sensitivity, from connection. Humans possess a strength that is subtle yet profound. It can awaken senses, reactions, and understanding in others, and I have felt that strength in your presence." Eli was silent for a moment, then smiled. "That's remarkable, and I think it works both ways. You've taught me too, not just about your world, but about observation, precision, and discipline." Zyra considered his words. Mutual respect. That was another human lesson, recognition of others, abilities, and experiences. She realized that connection and collaboration, though unfamiliar to her species, were not weaknesses. They were tools of growth, understanding, and true strength. As night fell, the twin moons reflected on the crystalline spires, and Zyra and Eli returned to their quarters. There was no need for formalities. The day's experiences had created a quiet, unspoken bond. Zyra prepared for rest, noting the subtle warmth and awareness she felt whenever Eli moved nearby. He entered briefly to check the data logs, smiling as always. "Good night, Zyra. Tomorrow will be another busy day." "Good night, human," she replied, her voice carrying a gentle sincerity. "I appreciate your presence. It is enlightening." Eli nodded, sensing the depth of her words. "And I appreciate yours." As Zyra lay in her bed, she reflected on her journey. The storm had been a catalyst, but the true discovery had been herself. She had learned to recognize subtle sensations, to understand the value of human presence, and to embrace a form of strength that was not purely physical. She no longer feared vulnerability or unusual sensations. Instead, she welcomed them, knowing that true strength included the ability to feel, adapt, and connect. For the first time, Zyra realized that sharing space, time, and experience with another being, especially a human, was not a threat to her resilience. It was a source of growth, understanding, and insight. And in that quiet moment, under the glow of Lithera's towers and the soft light of twin moons, Zyra understood something profound. Humanity, with all its fragility, curiosity, and adaptability, was not weaker than her species. It was stronger in ways her people had never measured, and it had opened her eyes to possibilities she had never imagined. The human beside her, Eli, had unknowingly taught her the most important lesson of all, that connection, awareness, and mutual respect could create a strength far greater than any individual could achieve alone. Zyra closed her eyes, a sense of calm and anticipation filling her. Tomorrow they would continue their work, explore new experiments, and face new challenges. But tonight, she simply allowed herself to feel, aware, connected, and strengthened by the presence of another being. And for the first time, Zyra knew that she had discovered something truly remarkable, a kind of strength that was both alien and human, one that would shape her understanding, her abilities, and her world forever.